the rejection and the awakening. The Galactic Assembly Station hung in the void like a jewel of impossible architecture. It was a structure that defied the laws of physics humanity had spent centuries understanding. Crystalline spires twisted upward into the darkness while rings of pure energy rotated around its core. This was the seat of power for 300 civilized species, a place where the fate of entire worlds was decided with a single vote. Commander Elena Voss stood in the center of the vast chamber, her uniform pressed and perfect, her posture radiating confidence she did not entirely feel. Around her, the chamber rose in circular tiers, each level filled with alien delegates whose forms ranged from the beautiful to the utterly bizarre. Some breathed methane through mechanical suits. Others floated in spheres of liquid. A few existed as pure energy contained within magnetic fields. They all had one thing in common. They were staring at her with expressions that ranged from mild curiosity to outright contempt. Behind Elena stood her small delegation. Dr. Marcus Chin, humanity's leading xenobiologist, carried a data tablet that contained centuries of human achievement. Ambassador Kira Osei, a veteran diplomat who had spent 15 years building relationships with minor species, kept her face calm despite the tension in her shoulders. Lieutenant James Park, their security escort, stood at attention with his hands clasped behind his back. They had prepared for this moment for 3 years. They had followed every protocol, completed every test, and demonstrated humanity's worthiness to join the galactic community. The chamber fell silent as the High Arbiter rose from the central dais. He was a Velkori, a species known for their ancient wisdom and unshakable neutrality. His body was tall and thin, covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water. Four eyes blinked independently as he surveyed the chamber. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translators that rendered his words in 1,000 languages simultaneously. The Assembly has reviewed humanity's petition for membership, the High Arbiter announced. His tone was formal and cold. We have examined their technological progress, their cultural development, and their capacity for peaceful coexistence. He paused, and Elena felt her heart hammering in her chest. This was it. The moment that would change everything. The Assembly has reached a decision, the High Arbiter continued. Humanity's petition is denied. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Around her, the alien delegates erupted in a mixture of reactions. Some clicked their approval. Others released pheromones of satisfaction that the translators rendered as smug agreement. A few remained silent, but their body language spoke volumes. They had expected this. They had wanted this. Elena forced herself to remain still. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her shock. Beside her, Dr. Chen's knuckles whitened as he gripped his tablet. Ambassador Osei closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the blow with practiced diplomatic composure. Lieutenant Park's jaw tightened, but he maintained his position. A delegate from the Visien Collective stood, his insectoid form clicking with what the translator rendered as amusement. Humans are too volatile, he declared. Your species experiences emotions with an intensity that borders on madness. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. You are dangerous to yourselves and to any who associate with you. Another voice joined in, this one belonging to a Korvathi representative whose gelatinous body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Your history is written in blood. Your own people warred against each other for thousands of years. What assurance do we have that such violence would not spread to the stars? More voices rose, each adding their condemnation. Humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too young, too emotional, too everything that the Assembly had decided was unacceptable. Elena listened to each accusation, her mind working rapidly. She had prepared responses for every possible objection. She had data, evidence, proof of humanity's growth and evolution. But as she looked around the chamber, she realized the terrible truth. This was not a trial. It was a verdict that had been decided long before she arrived. The High Arbiter raised one elongated hand, and silence fell once more. Commander Voss, humanity has been deemed incompatible with the principles of the Galactic Assembly. You are hereby ordered to return to your homeworld. Earth will be restricted to its own star system. Any attempt to establish colonies beyond your designated boundary will be met with sanctions. He paused, and something that might have been pity flickered across his alien features. We do this for your own protection and for the stability of the galaxy. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when your species has matured, you may petition again. Elena felt rage building inside her, hot and fierce. 1,000 years. They were condemning humanity to isolation for 1,000 years based on prejudice and fear. She opened her mouth to protest, to argue, to demand the fairness they claimed to represent. But Ambassador Osei placed a gentle hand on her arm and shook her head slightly. There was wisdom in her eyes, the kind that came from decades of navigating political minefields. "We understand," Ambassador Osei said, her voice steady and dignified. "Humanity thanks the Assembly for its consideration. We will respect your decision and return to Earth." Elena wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them exactly what she thought of their so-called wisdom and their hypocritical principles. But she bit her tongue and nodded. They had lost. There was nothing more to say. As they walked toward the exit, Elena felt every eye in the chamber following them. Some aliens whispered among themselves. Others simply watched with the detached interest of spectators at an execution. The massive doors slid open with a hiss, and the human delegation stepped into the corridor beyond. The moment the doors sealed behind them, Elena let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "That was a setup from the beginning," Lieutenant Park said quietly. "They never intended to let us join." Dr. Chin nodded, his expression grim. 300 species in the Assembly and not one spoke in our defense. They fear us. "Good," Elena said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. "Let them fear us." The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks through the conventional hyperspace lanes the Assembly permitted humanity to use. During that time, Elena and her team debated their next move. They reviewed every moment of the hearing, analyzed every word and gesture, and came to a unanimous conclusion. The galaxy did not want humanity as equals. They wanted humanity contained, controlled, and kept small. When they arrived at Earth's orbital station, news of the rejection had already spread. Every news network carried the story. Every government issued statements ranging from outrage to despair. The streets of every major city saw protests demanding action or resignation or war. Humanity had unified for this moment, putting aside centuries of division to reach for the stars together. Now they had been told they were not good enough, not civilized enough, not worthy enough. Elena reported directly to the United Earth Council, a governing body that represented every nation on the planet. The council chambers were located in Geneva, built into the side of a mountain with windows that looked out over the Alps. 12 representatives sat in a semicircle, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. Premier Sarah Nakamura, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that had seen humanity through its worst and best moments, spoke first. "Commander Voss, we have read your full report. The Assembly's rejection was not based on any legitimate concern. It was based on prejudice." "Yes, Premier," Elena confirmed. "They fear what we might become. They see our emotions, our passion, our drive to explore and create as weaknesses. They do not understand that these are our greatest strengths." One of the council members, Minister Zhou from the Asian Federation, leaned forward. "What do you recommend we do? Accept their judgment and remain isolated for a millennium?" Elena met his gaze directly. "No, Minister. I recommend we build our own path. The Assembly thinks they can contain us, that we will simply accept their borders and their rules. I say we prove them wrong." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some argued for caution, warning that defying the Assembly could lead to conflict. Others demanded immediate action, suggesting everything from military expansion to complete isolation. Premier Nakamura let them argue for several minutes before raising her hand for silence. "We have a choice to make," she said quietly. "We can spend the next 1,000 years hoping the Assembly changes its mind, or we can show them exactly what humanity is capable of when we set our minds to a goal." She looked at each council member in turn. "I propose we initiate Project Horizon." The chamber fell silent. Project Horizon had been a theoretical plan, a contingency that nobody truly believed would be necessary. It involved massive resource allocation, technological leaps that bordered on impossible, and a complete restructuring of humanity's approach to space exploration. It was ambitious beyond measure. It was also exactly what humanity needed. Dr. Chin stepped forward with his tablet. Project Horizon would require the full cooperation of every nation, every corporation, and every research institution on Earth. We would need to pool our knowledge, our resources, and our labor. But if we succeed, we would bypass the Assembly entirely. We would establish our own network of colonies, our own trading partners, our own place in the galaxy. Without their permission, Minister Zhou noted. "We never needed their permission," Elena said firmly. "We only wanted their acceptance. Since they have denied us that, we will earn their respect instead." The vote was unanimous. Project Horizon was approved with immediate effect. Within days, construction began on a scale humanity had never attempted before. Shipyards expanded across Earth's orbit. Research facilities pushed the boundaries of physics and engineering. Recruitment centers opened in every city, calling for volunteers to join the greatest endeavor in human history. The rejection that was meant to humble humanity had instead awakened something primal and powerful. Humanity would rise not because the assembly permitted it, but because nothing in the universe could stop them when they decided to move forward together. The Empire rises. 5 years had passed since the rejection, and the galaxy had changed in ways the assembly never anticipated. Commander Elena Voss, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, humanity's first true deep space explorer vessel. The ship was a marvel of engineering that combined human ingenuity with technologies the assembly had never dreamed humans could develop. Its hull was composed of a metamaterial that could absorb and redirect energy weapons. Its engines used quantum tunneling principles that allowed faster-than-light travel without relying on the assembly's regulated hyperspace lanes. Most importantly, it was completely independent of any galactic infrastructure. Through the vast viewport, Elena watched as construction drones worked on the newest addition to humanity's growing network. Gateway Station 7 floated in the darkness, its massive ring structure nearly complete. This was humanity's secret weapon, the discovery that changed everything. 3 years ago, Dr. Marcus Chin had made a breakthrough while analyzing ancient ruins on a dead world in the Epsilon Eridani system. Hidden beneath kilometers of rock and ice, he had found something the assembly either did not know existed or had deliberately kept secret. An ancient network of instantaneous jump gates built by a civilization that had vanished millions of years before the assembly even formed. The gates were dormant, their power systems long dead, but their underlying technology was intact. Human engineers had studied them obsessively, reverse engineering principles that made conventional faster-than-light travel look primitive by comparison. Within 2 years, humanity had restored the first gate. Within 3 they had built their own. Now, 7 functioning gates created a web of instantaneous travel that connected human colonies across a vast region of space the assembly had dismissed as worthless frontier territory. Admiral, incoming transmission from Gateway Command, Lieutenant Sarah Torres announced from the communications station. She was young, barely 25, but she had proven herself as one of the best officers in the fleet. Director Chin requests your presence for the council meeting. Elena nodded. Helm, set course for Gateway Prime. Maximum speed. The Endeavour turned gracefully in space and accelerated toward the nearest jump gate. The transit was instantaneous, a brief moment of disorientation as the ship crossed 40 light-years in the blink of an eye. They emerged near Gateway Prime, the heart of what humanity now called the Terran Commonwealth. The station was enormous, dwarfing even the assembly's grandest structures. Around it, hundreds of ships moved in carefully orchestrated patterns. Some were human vessels, but others bore the markings of species the assembly had never heard of or had dismissed as too primitive to matter. That was humanity's other great achievement. While the assembly had been content to ignore entire regions of space, humanity had reached out to the species living there. The Kethril, a reptilian race with a natural talent for navigation, had joined humanity after humans helped them fight off raiders that the assembly had refused to protect them from. The Vorum, crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic resonance, had allied with humanity when human scientists learned to understand their unique language. The Selkathi, aquatic creatures who lived in the oceans of their water-covered worlds, had embraced humanity after seeing that humans treated them as equals rather than curiosities. Each species brought unique strengths to the Commonwealth. Each had been overlooked, dismissed, or actively scorned by the assembly. Together with humanity they formed something new, something the galaxy had not seen in thousands of years. A true alliance built on mutual respect and shared purpose rather than imposed hierarchy and ancient traditions. Elena materialized on Gateway Prime's command deck using the station's internal transport system. The chamber was circular, with holographic displays showing real-time data from every corner of Commonwealth space. At the center stood a large table where the Commonwealth Council gathered. Dr. Chen was already there, along with Ambassador Osei and representatives from each allied species. Kethril Commander Vexlar, his scaled hide marked with battle scars, nodded in greeting. His species had been raiders once, but under human influence they had become some of the finest peacekeepers in the Commonwealth. Admiral Voss, your timing is excellent. We have a situation developing. Elena took her seat at the table. What kind of situation? A holographic star map appeared above the table, showing Commonwealth territory in blue and assembly space in red. A section of the border was flashing yellow. 3 assembly cruisers entered our space 6 hours ago, Ambassador Osei explained. They claim they are conducting a routine patrol, but their heading suggests they are moving toward Kepler Station. Kepler Station was humanity's newest colony, located on a resource-rich world that technically fell within the boundaries the Assembly had tried to impose 5 years ago. Humanity had ignored those boundaries and established a thriving settlement of 50,000 people. The station also served as a major trading hub for Commonwealth members. "They are testing us," Elena said immediately. "They want to see if we will back down." Vorum harmonizer crystallis, whose body refracted light into rainbow patterns, resonated with a tone that the translators rendered as concern. "The Assembly has been increasingly agitated by our expansion. Their member species report that trade routes are suffering. Some species are questioning why they remain in the Assembly when the Commonwealth offers better terms." "Good," Elena said. "Let them question. We are not trying to destroy the Assembly, but we will not let them dictate our future." Selkathi speaker Tidal Wave, speaking through a water-filled communication sphere, added her perspective. "My people lived in fear of the Draken Raiders for generations. The Assembly told us protection would come if we joined them, but it never did. Humanity helped us in 6 months. The Assembly has ruled for 10,000 years, but they have grown complacent and arrogant." Dr. Chen pulled up detailed scans of the Assembly cruisers. "These are not their most advanced ships, but they are equipped with weapons that could devastate Kepler Station. We need to respond but carefully. If we destroy Assembly vessels, we risk open war. We also cannot show weakness," Commander Vexlar growled. "My people learned long ago that predators only respect strength." Elena studied the map carefully, her mind working through scenarios and possibilities. The Commonwealth fleet had grown substantially, but they were still outnumbered by the Assembly's combined forces. However, humanity had advantages the Assembly did not know about. Advanced weapon systems. Superior tactics developed through centuries of human military evolution. Most importantly, unity of purpose that the fractured Assembly could never match. "We do not need to destroy them," Elena said finally. "We need to make a statement. Lieutenant Torres, prepare the Endeavor for immediate departure. Commander Vexlar, I want your fastest ships ready to move. We are going to Kepler Station, and we are going to show the Assembly exactly what happens when they threaten Commonwealth citizens." Within hours, a Commonwealth task force assembled near Gateway 6. The Endeavor led a formation of 20 ships, a mix of human vessels and allied craft. They jumped to Kepler Station and emerged directly between the colony and the approaching Assembly cruisers. The 3 Assembly ships immediately halted their advance, clearly surprised by the sudden appearance of the Commonwealth fleet. Elena opened a communication channel. "Assembly vessels, this is Admiral Elena Voss of the Terran Commonwealth. You have entered sovereign Commonwealth space without authorization. You will reverse course immediately or face the consequences." There was a long pause before a response came. The image that appeared on the screen showed a Velkori captain, his scales dull with age and experience. "Admiral Voss, I am Captain Thelander of the Assembly Defense Force. This region of space falls under Assembly jurisdiction according to the boundaries established 5 years ago." "Boundaries we never agreed to," Elena replied calmly. "The Assembly rejected humanity and attempted to imprison us within our own star system. We declined that prison. The Commonwealth exists beyond your authority, Captain. You have no jurisdiction here." Captain Thelander's 4 eyes narrowed. "The Assembly Council will not tolerate this defiance. You are inviting conflict that will destroy everything you have built." Elena leaned forward, her expression hardening. "Captain, let me be very clear. Humanity was rejected because you feared our emotions, our passion, our unpredictability. You thought those traits made us weak. You were wrong. Those traits make us unstoppable. We have built an alliance of free peoples who refuse to bow to your outdated hierarchy. We have developed technologies you cannot match. We have created something beautiful and powerful, and we will defend it with every resource at our disposal." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You have 2 options. You can reverse course now and report to your council that the Commonwealth is not to be threatened. Or you can open fire, and I will show you exactly what human warships are capable of. Choose wisely, Captain." The tension stretched across the void of space. Elena could see her bridge crew watching her, waiting for the order to engage if necessary. She had prepared for this moment, knowing that eventually the Assembly would test the Commonwealth's resolve. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. Captain Thelander studied her through the view screen. His expression was unreadable, but Elena recognized the calculating look in his eyes. He was weighing options, considering consequences, trying to determine if this was a bluff. Finally he spoke. "The Assembly will hear of this, Admiral Voss. There will be consequences. There already are consequences, Elena replied. The galaxy is changing, Captain. The assembly can change with it or be left behind. The three assembly cruisers slowly turned and began moving away from Commonwealth space. Elena watched them go, feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. She had won this confrontation, but it was only the beginning. The assembly would not accept this challenge lightly. Well done, Admiral, Ambassador Osei said quietly. But you realize what this means. The assembly will see this as an act of war. They will see it as whatever they choose to see, Elena responded. But they will also see that we are not afraid of them. Over the following months, tensions escalated. The assembly imposed sanctions on any species that traded with the Commonwealth, but it backfired spectacularly. More species, frustrated with the assembly's heavy-handed tactics, began secretly negotiating with humanity. The Commonwealth grew stronger with each new member, each new alliance, each new technological breakthrough. Then came the moment that changed everything. A distress signal reached Gateway Prime from deep within assembly space. The transmission was fragmentary, but the message was clear. An unknown threat had appeared from beyond the galactic rim, something ancient and hostile that the assembly's forces could not stop. Entire worlds were going dark. Millions were dying. The assembly, for all its power and pride, was facing extinction. The Commonwealth Council gathered once more in emergency session. The holographic displays showed the devastation spreading through assembly territory. The unknown enemy used weapons that bypassed shields and tore through hulls like paper. They moved with coordinated precision that suggested a hive intelligence. They showed no interest in communication or negotiation. They simply destroyed everything in their path. They are calling it the Void Swarm, Dr. Chin reported grimly. Preliminary analysis suggests they are a form of organic technology, possibly created as a weapon by an ancient civilization. They have been dormant for millions of years and something woke them up. Commander Vexlar studied the tactical data with professional interest. The assembly's weapons are ineffective. Their tactics are outdated. At their current rate of loss, they will be completely overrun within 6 months. The question, Ambassador Osei said quietly, is what do we do about it? Elena knew what was coming before anyone spoke the words. The assembly had rejected humanity, had tried to contain them, had threatened them. Now they were dying and they needed help. The decision should have been easy. Let them face the consequences of their arrogance. Let them understand what it meant to stand alone. But Elena thought about the billions of innocent beings living in assembly space, people who had no say in their government's decisions. She thought about the refugees who would flood into Commonwealth space if the assembly fell. Most importantly, she thought about what humanity stood for, what had driven them to reach for the stars despite every obstacle. We helped them, Elena said finally. The council chamber erupted in argument, but she raised her hand for silence. We helped them, but on our terms. The Commonwealth will commit our forces to fighting the Void Swarm, but in exchange the Assembly will recognize our sovereignty, grant us full membership as equals, and reform their entire structure to prevent this kind of arrogance from ever happening again. Within days, a formal request arrived from the High Arbiter himself. The same Velkori who had pronounced judgment on humanity 5 years ago now begged for their assistance. Elena made him wait 3 days before responding, letting him experience just a fraction of the uncertainty humanity had endured. When she finally accepted the communication, the High Arbiter looked diminished, his scales dull with stress and fear. Admiral Voss, the Assembly formally requests the Commonwealth's assistance in defending against the Void Swarm threat. We are prepared to negotiate terms. Elena allowed herself a small smile. High Arbiter, 5 years ago you told humanity we were too emotional, too volatile, too dangerous to join your assembly. You imprisoned us within our own star system and told us to mature for 1,000 years. Now you need those dangerous, emotional, volatile humans to save you. The High Arbiter lowered his head. We were wrong, Admiral. The Assembly was built on principles that once served the galaxy well, but we became blind to our own failings. Humanity has achieved in 5 years what we thought impossible. You have built an alliance based on merit and mutual respect rather than hierarchy and tradition. You have developed technologies we cannot comprehend. Most importantly, you have remained true to your principles even when we rejected you. The Commonwealth will help, Elena said. But understand this, we do not do it for your approval or your gratitude. We do it because it is right. When this is over, the galaxy will be different. The Assembly will no longer dictate the future. Humanity and our allies will stand as equals, or we will stand apart. Those are the only options. The High Arbiter met her gaze with all 4 eyes. The Assembly accepts your terms, Admiral. Welcome to the Galactic Council. Elena disconnected the transmission and looked around at her fellow council members. They had done it. Humanity had been rejected, dismissed, and threatened. In response, they had built an empire not of conquest, but of cooperation. They had proven that their emotions, their passion, their stubborn refusal to accept limitations were not weaknesses but the very traits that made them extraordinary. The war against the Void Swarm would be long and costly, but humanity would face it alongside allies who chose to stand with them freely. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It would never make that mistake again. Admiral Elena Voss smiled as the Commonwealth fleet prepared for battle. 5 years ago, the Council had rejected humanity. Now, humanity had returned with an empire built on hope, determination, and the unshakable belief that any challenge could be overcome when people stood together. The galaxy would never be the same again. The end.